Hello, teachers. I had a couple of ideas that I'd like to share about how we can communicate with students during this period of time that we can't physically be with them. The first option is to create instructional videos. You can create either directions of you giving assignments to your students, play along videos, practice videos, instructional technique videos for your students, and you can upload those onto YouTube. If you'd like, there's an option to make those videos unlisted, so only people with the link can access those videos. And that's just an easy way that you don't have to send a big file via email to your students, as that takes up a lot of data on their end. It takes up a lot of storage, it's very slow. So you can upload that unlisted video to YouTube. There are other video hosting websites like Vimeo that you can also use. I find it easier to use Google overall because I can link my videos to my Google Drive, to my that has a lot of different worksheets and assignments, to maybe my Google Forms, which I use for quizzes and other assignments, which is of course linked to Google Classroom. Google Classroom is another way you can communicate with your students. If your school is enrolled with Google Classroom, it's very, very easy to set that up. You can contact your if you have an IT department, they can help you set that up. If you are teaching more independently, it's very easy and it's free to set up a Google Classroom for yourself. The biggest challenge with that is just getting your students to register in the Google Classroom. And if you have younger students, it might be their parents' email address that is registered to your Google Classroom. Through that platform, you can create assignments, you can post resources, you can grade assignments, you can post quizzes. There are lots of different ways to interact with that platform. And it's great that even if you're not a traditional school teacher, you don't teach in a school, you can still use Google Classroom to communicate with your students. That is also the best way to receive work from your students in a really organized way. You could ask students to email you different assignments or videos, but I find that my inbox just gets way too cluttered, and then you have to go through a whole extra step of organizing which assignment is which and keeping track of what students submitted what. Whereas in Google Classroom, it's very, very, very easy to see for this specific assignment, here are the students who have submitted their work, and it's all there for you. And then your inbox doesn't get even more full and even more cluttered. Another way that you can interact with your students based on what your district policy or your organization's policy is through Zoom. So you can also use Skype or another video conferencing mechanism, but I find Zoom has a clearer connection and it's easier for me, at least, I found, to share a link where kids with their parents or families can join a Zoom conference call. You can do video or you can do audio only. In my experience, video conferencing isn't necessarily the best option for a lot of kids. Some kids live in very noisy households, or it's difficult for them to have enough phone data or consistent internet access to be able to do a Zoom call. Also, I found some students are really shy to kind of share what their homes look like. So just in consideration for the privacy of our students, and sometimes it makes them a little bit nervous to share what their surroundings look like or sound like, I have stayed away from Zoom calls mostly, but that really depends on you and your rapport with your students and what your student population looks like. It might be a great option for you. If you do end up doing a Zoom call, I would suggest doing them in very small groups of people. Once you get past 10 people on a Zoom call, it can be very confusing as to whose turn it is to talk and what's going on with the call. You can also expect with any new kind of procedure, technology, to just stumble through the first couple of them, and that's totally fine. On Zoom, there is an option for you to virtually raise your hand, so you can see as the teacher who has their hand raised, and then you can kind of call on them to speak, ask a question, answer a question, whatever have you. I would definitely suggest having everybody except for the teacher muted when you start your call. And then as speakers come up, the students can unmute themselves and speak. This just makes the call a lot less chaotic, and it just makes it so that they can actually hear your directions. The other thing that you might want to consider is if kids don't have video access or they can't get onto Zoom, you might consider using a Google document, kind of like a running document if you want to have a discussion on a specific topic. Let's say you are discussing a composer or a piece of music, and you just open a Google document, you assign maybe 5 or 10 students to that document, you assign each student a different color, and then you can just kind of have a running conversation with your kids. You can either say, okay, between the hours of, let's say 10 a.m. and 12 p.m., we are all going to contribute to this conversation. And then between the hours of 12 and 2 o'clock, these next 5 students are gonna join the conversation, make different comments, things like that. You can do that in a Google document, or you can create a discussion in Google Classroom. So those are both options if you'd like to kind of start a conversation with your students. One thing to keep in mind is that your students are receiving a lot of online instruction from many different places, from all of their teachers at school to many of their after-school activities. I'm sure they're feeling a little bit overwhelmed and could be a little bit confused about what the expectations are from you. I think to be successful in this kind of situation, all of us, all different kinds of teachers, have to set very clear deadlines and not make our assignments extremely hefty. I know we're all a little bit nervous that our kids are going to fall behind, that we want to make sure we keep on top of our curriculum, but in a situation like this, it might not be possible for all of our students, and that's just something to take into consideration. A lot of our kids are also really stressed out. Some of the kids are really, really happy to not be in school. They're happy to be home. And some of our kids have so much anxiety around COVID-19, possibly affecting their families and their communities. So there's just a lot of change going on. And there's a lot to think about, but I'm happy to share my videos, my experiences, mostly my failed experiences with doing this for a number of years. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me. I'll put my email at the end of the video, and thanks for watching.